was a great night.
It was indeed a great night, and I really enjoyed your collage of pictures and newspaper articles and
Thank
stuff.
my mom for a lot of those articles.
Yeah, because she stored them for you. And the choice of Jefferson Airplane, that track that's playing here too,
seemed to fit the spot.
Really perfect in every way.
Some memories there, Van Halen.
Yeah.
Were you there for that?
I was not there for Van Halen, but or Stevie Ray Vaughan, but I saw a lot of other stuff.
Saw Elvis Brothers many times.
Yeah, oh yeah, Elvis Brothers, Mitch Ryder, Humble Pie, Steve Marriott.
Wow,
it was incredible. He between songs, he took a drag off a cigarette and laid a big loogie on the stage, and then started the next one and just sang like
Gotta love that.
Steve Marriott. Holy cow! I drank beer with him for a couple hours after that show, too.
Nice. And there's Jets.
The Jets.
That was from the first Lennon show, the set list.
Uh-huh. Oh, was it?
Yeah, there were you and Matt.
Wow.
So that gets us into...
Yeah, and here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really was a celebration with friends. Holy cow. It was, it really became the second chance for real during the course of the evening.
Mike Eisenberg.
Eisenberg, yeah. I was really glad that Kim was able to come up.
Definitely.
And his sister, Grace, was there. And, we actually played those songs.
I bought that guitar off Mike.
Did you?
Yeah. Eddie.
Eddie, you played with Eddie.
Yeah, he was in Maiden Cane, and, of course, The Other Side, and Eddie Boo Band.
Nice guy.
Bartonville guy.
I only saw him on a stage maybe once.
He was quite the entertainer.
Yeah, he was. And there's I forgot we have that life-size cutout I was going to bring on stage, and I forgot all about it, of that pose. That's the Kittens.
Yeah.
That's opening for Eargasm in 1978.
Great.
Yeah.
And Mike.
Yep, and Mike's wife was there, I believe. I'm pretty sure because I saw her the day before at the Riverfront Museum.
Yeah.
Reggie was there, Pete's former girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. Of course, Scott played in Maiden Cane with us.
Yeah. Dan Higgins, Suburban 9 to 5, and Ricky Spitfire, and just a jewel of a guy.
Nicest guy in the world.
Yes, he was. And it's sad after they moved away, I didn't really keep in touch. Jim Reeves, everybody that was around in those days really knows, has a lot of stories about just listening to him on the radio.
Oh, yeah, what a voice.
Yeah, he was sort of the voice of CT in those days.
Yeah.
John Eason, my goodness.
I knew him briefly.
I played a bunch of gigs with him.
What a personality.
Yeah. We did some Cream stuff with the New Imposters with John, and when it was over, he looked at me and he said, "A lot of notes." Well, okay. Fogelberg, Suburban 9 to 5.
Did you know him?
I did not. I had lunch one day with Tom Kane, and we were talking about maybe doing some Golden Voice stuff, and then Tom passed away. That's him with the 335 there. He had some good stories too, but unfortunately we didn't get any of that together before he sort of out of the blue disappeared on us, unfortunately. Gary Richrath, what was the band with Whale? The Alliance? Was that The Alliance?
That's what I hear.
Suburban 9 to 5. Yeah, I mean, the stories those guys could tell,
Right.
Of course, Gary was, he was a superstar waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm. East Peoria.
Yeah, Denny DeBourbon was the Cool Ray manager, and I can't remember the name of the booking agency that he was my competitor.
Wow.
But then we got to be friends,
I really met Bud at the Limelight gig we did.
Uh-huh. Bud would show up in my store over the last few years of his life, just out of the blue, stand there and make me laugh for a half an hour and then go away again.
And then your partner.
There's my buddy, my daughter's godfather, Slink Rand. We played in a bunch of different bands together, and we managed to make an album together. before he passed away. Pete Bailey, the amazing bass player from the Slink Rand group, he just made it look so easy. He's dancing on stage while he's playing, playing everybody under the table.
Love to see the Slink Rand group.
Yeah. Eisenberg on the left, Danny Keys on the right, and Hank Skinner, who, whatever stories there may be about Hank, he was responsible for a lot of stuff that happened here in the 60s. Wild Child Gipson had a number of records with Freddie Teakin and the Rockers, and at least one solo single that I've got. Stu Milas, did you know Stu?
Saw him play with Chops years ago.
I saw Chops once. I never actually met Stu.
Never met him.
But, legendary drummer around here.
Met Dave a few times, though.
Legendary bass player.
Yes.
He was playing with Renaissance for years after the Jim McCarty, Keith Relf version of Renaissance with, the Latter Day group.
And here's a name I always heard, but I never saw him live.
The only time I remember seeing Pork, he was singing with a band in Decatur called the Light Brigade, from which came Steve Hunter, who went on to Alice Cooper, and John Sauter. DT was the singing drummer with the other side, and then, the same thing with Eargasm. There's DT and Pete together. Pete Parkhurst, one of the nicest guys on the planet. You can say that about almost everybody on this thing.
Yeah.
Just a real sweetheart, great guitar player.
They played at Limestone, and we had girls would just lay at his feet.
Yeah. Superstar.
And I played with Glenn.
Yeah. Glenn was he was a real good friend of mine. Him and Hank Skinner held on to Peoria Musical while I was out of town, and when I came back, he had everything lined up for me to take it over. Ralph was the bass player in Remedy. I didn't know, I never met Ralph, but there's a Remedy album now, so you can hear his work. Garrett O'Donnell, great guy, died way too young. He was in Planes Mistaken for Stars. They toured the world, basically.
Wow.
Bill Love, founder of Co-op Tapes and Records, with Jay Goldberg. They had The Barn, which, that was sort of the beginning of the steady stream of major bands coming to town. Danny was a bass player in Claw, made a super collectible biker rock album. And then he played with Dave Chastain and lots of other
Rooster
people.
Alley.
Luther Allison I produced an album for in 1979 called Gonna Be Alive When In Here Tonight. There it is.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, funny enough.
Yep. Great, legendary guy.
Love Jimmy.
Yep. Did you see him?
I used to go to the art gallery and watch him play. Danny Light and I would just sit and he'd swap stories. He was so funny.
Yeah. Yep. I didn't know him.
And that was my best buddy there, Danny Newby, Flying Dorito brother, original Flying.
The original Flying Dorito brother.
I gave his eulogy, and when I was working in insurance, he took out a policy. It was the first insurance policy I ever paid out on.
Oh,
6
my
kids.
goodness.
Yep. And then, both these guys were my best friends, and they both are passed away now.
Boy.
Tom was a professor at ICC, very well loved.
And a talent as well.
He was in Vietnam, and he was just a true hippie.
Yeah. I've got records by Bruce Chamberlain, but and he was good buddies with, Jerry Milam, and he was part of sort of the group that became Golden Voice artists. Birdman, and I tried to get Sally Weisenberg and Don Burbaum to do the second chance, but they've got we're all getting older, and it just didn't work out, unfortunately. David Adams,
Screams.
singer from Screams. I don't know what got him, but he was much too young.
What an album.
Yeah, great voice. Eddie, I think I saw Eddie play like the blues, one of the blues society things or something, but I didn't know him. But he was certainly a known commodity in town. Johnny O'Neill played with a band called Red Hot Rider with Matt Warren. And then when he moved up here, he was in the Idols and Matinee Idols with Glenn Duncan and Bill Keister. Ron Stockert from Decatur, but he was in the Havana Ducks. He was also the keyboard player in the Light Brigade, the band that I saw Pork in.
Is that Chaka Khan in that picture?
That's Chaka Khan, yeah. Chuck and Mary Perrin. Mary is gone. Chuck, I guess, is still kicking. I don't know if he does any kind of performing or anything, but their first album is genius. Jesse Flores, everybody knows Jesse. Every musician around here's got Jesse stories. I'm absolutely certain. Great guy.
And his kids are all great too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the place is still there.
Yeah.
Bubby, was he the drummer in Suburban 9? Yes. He was the drummer in Suburban 9 to 5. He was a good buddy with Whale too. Whale used to talk about him. The Shags, right? Yeah, the Shags.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's a few of the Shags are gone. Bill Melton. Who else? I don't know. Are these?
Now they were like one of Peoria's first rock bands, right? Or
they were the
in that way.
superstar band. Yeah. Bill Melton, Dave Porter gone, the bass player and guitar player. Well, I think the blonde guy down there is Chuck Perrin. Alvin Butler, he was a good guy. I didn't know him very well, but every time I ran into him, he talked to me like he'd known me forever. Great guy. Killer drummer, too. Smoking drummer. Freddie Teakin, well, I knew him pretty well. Ilmo Smokehouse, Freddie Teakin and the Rockers. Freddie, I don't know, Freddie never actually wrote a book, but he wrote a long biography once that's well worth a read. Roger Vail was one of the first guys that I sort of idolized when I first started playing. He was after the Vectors, which had Joe Kelly from the Shadows of Night in it. But Vail made a record with a band called The Zoo that's monster.
yeah.
Well, there's the original Peoria local-centered journalist right there.
The man.
Yeah. A one-man act, too.
He found out that I was in Bloomington at ISU, and he came to my house. Somehow he found me to deliver papers.
Yeah. Gail she wasn't in Chops, was she? Or
Crisscross, it says.
Crisscross, yeah. I should just wait for your subtitles. Yeah, Captain Gadget. I didn't know him at all until Mackinac, but clearly he had been around a long time before that. I think the rest of Mackinac is still with us. Doug Oakley was the drummer and singer for a Pittsfield band called the Intruders. And then later on, that album, Wabash Resurrection, but the Intruders, that record is just a killer. 60s garage. Kenny Elam, I knew his name before I knew anything about him, but he was one of the Warner Brothers. And boy, I wish that theater had been maintained. Pops McFarlane, bass player, played with pretty much everybody at some point in time for decades. And his sister is Spanky McFarlane.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. John Pappas. This gentleman, the drummer from the Warner Brothers. I'm not sure if any of the Warner Brothers are still with us. I'm not sure. They were legends before I ever got here. Doug was a good friend of mine. He played bass with Lazy He and oh gosh, he played in a band with Danny Keys too, and Lotus, I think it was. Joni worked at the Other Side Lounge in its prime, in its heyday, and she hosted more rock and roll parties in her place than there's time to even talk about.
I played with Joe for about 3 gigs before I went back to school, and he came back from St. Louis to play in Maiden King again, but he was in the original Maiden King group, and he just passed away a few years ago.
Yeah. Okay, this, believe it or not, is Jerry Milam's band. Jerry's the guitar player, the taller than everybody in the picture. And everybody else in this picture is gone.
Yeah.
And but they made great records. They were a killer band.
It looks like the end of American Graffiti or something here.
Yes. Yeah, sort of. Dick Bush, they did solo records on Dick. So if you're digging around for singles, you can find Dick Bush singles, you can find Standells. What was the other band that they recorded? The Kokays, Kokays. Those are all related to Jerry Milam, who is the founder and the original builder and engineer of Golden Voice. Billy Kendall, I knew him. He used to come up and hang out with Hank when I was working at Hank's booking agency. He didn't look like that. He was a hippie. Big John, I actually met Big John. He had Big John's place over in Galesburg, and that's Greg Williams on the right side there. And he was in Big John's band for years. And I think this is the end of the video here.
Getting close.
Close, anyway. Yeah. What's his name? Fred. Right? Fred?
Floyd.
I'm sorry, Floyd Matthews, yeah.
And I think
Chris Wallfeld was a good friend of mine, and he worked at Peoria Record Company, and he also was sort of a roadie for the original Ready, Steady, Go and my band Eyes back in 76 and 77. And this gentleman didn't make it to the reunion. He passed away. He was the original keyboard player in the Jade 50s. And Rocky, they all have nicknames, you know. He was Rocky.
So for all of you who could not make the show, it was a dynamite show. It was great. And there should be some video that's going to be coming out over the next few months of the show. So be looking for that. In the meantime, you have this to watch.
Yeah. And there will be, there's some probably pretty amazing recordings and video, I guess. And we got to thank Brady Varwig for that. And also the reason anybody saw this at the show was because of Brady. So thanks for running the videos, Brady.